The law was when during Jesus's earthly ministry, the law was that a Roman soldier could just pull anybody aside, Jews in particular, and say, "You're going to carry my crap for me for a mile." You're going to carry my gear.
Yeah.
You're going to carry my sword. You're going to
Shield,
carry my
helmet,
shield,
whatever.
my helmet, all my stuff for a mile, and they have to walk that mile with the Roman soldier. Well, what Jesus does is really interesting. Is they're walking along, and a mile goes by, and the Roman soldier says, "Oh, okay, I'll take that back." And no, we're going to go the extra mile.
The
We're going to
extra
go.
mile,
He's
right.
like, I've got 2 more miles to go, or whatever it is, and no, we'll carry it the whole way. You don't have to do that. The law says blah blah blah. Yeah, I know I don't. So
Yeah,
when we're
that's
talking
great.
about listening, what we're doing with someone is trying to help them carry some of what
Their load.
offload some of their load,
Yeah.
carry it for them until we can figure out how to put it down, hopefully permanently,
Yeah.
or reinterpret it so it's not quite so heavy.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson hanging out with SJ Jennings and the ball. The ball's back. And I'm
not stressed either. I'm just trying not to
good.
tap on things.
I'm glad. We are doing a series on listening well. And I appreciate the subject on this. And I have Galatians, fatherhood, all those. Whenever we do a podcast series, I feel like I get to be kind of a customer of that exploration, that research, organizing.
Yeah,
thoughts.
much like at our encounter weekends when we're doing the talks. I mean, we get so much out of just preparing the talks at the weekend. Same thing.
Yeah. We have they're full, but we have 2 advances coming up in October, and yeah, man, just sitting with you and Josh, just mapping those out.
Yeah.
And seeing where God has us, listening to each other, listening to the Trinity in terms of shaping a weekend that's going to shape 90 guys, 80, 90 guys.
Yeah.
Is and what will guide them through in terms of an exploration of their hearts, their place in the kingdom. And so this subject, listening, like I said in the last episode, it's just so critical to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I know most of us, myself included, are pretty versed at talking, at sharing, but to be listened to, it's up there at the top of one of the most loving and kind things that someone can do for someone else. And so that's so this, we're going to step into a little bit more of why listening matters and the power of it.
I got to interrupt you. It's an arresting thing when you're listened to well, when somebody's really engaged with you and is asking, in the last episode we talked about how it's kind of like digging deeper. You ask a question, and then if you're listening well, you want to dig more of that out, right? And keep asking questions. And when you're on the receiving end of that, and you haven't been in a long time, it's arresting. It's like, I don't know that I knew how much I needed someone to listen to me that way.
Right. And thank you for bringing it up now, because in this session we want to talk about in the back half of the session even about asking questions and just how significant that is to being a good listener. And I like to, going back, just one more thing from last session, that I told you I just kind of want to chuck this active listening idea.
Yeah, hooey.
and bring and offer an idea of engaged listening.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was taught active listening, I was actually taught, how to bring somehow, some way, something from my life and story that I'm supposed to be listening, but now I'm making you relate to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be disruptive
Yeah.
for sure in the moment when somebody might need, is moving out of the shallows and into something more deep where they need somebody who can really concern themselves about their heart, their emotions, their story,
Yeah.
and what they're going through. So
I got a story about that I got to tell. Okay?
now you want to have to break.
Well,
now?
oh yeah, we're going to the intro.
So
when we come back,
we will kick off with a story from SJ on listening. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be right back on the Exploring More podcast. It's good for you. It builds confidence, a strong heart, and a sense of belonging. And of course, brotherhood. I'm talking about allies. At Zoe, we believe that no man should go it alone. So we've created 2 national Zoom groups for men, the West and the East Circles. They kick off again this fall, and you're invited. So get signed up, pick up your copy of The Heart of a Warrior, and join us for a strength-building journey. Got allies? I hope so. Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, and kick off with a story.
Yeah. So to your point, like this debunking active listening, right? Or let's just not call it that, or let's not practice it that way anymore.
Yeah.
Where, you tell me something that's deeply important to you, and then I'm going to share something from my story that's going to help you relate to me, and vice versa. So we've got a couple of guests in the studio today. Our number one fan east of the Mississippi, Sean Harmon, is here. And then our number one fan west of the Mississippi, from Wichita, all the way from Wichita, Kansas, Doug Miller. But I want to tell a story about Sean because several years ago, he was stepping into the role of a medic at the weekend. And I talked about that in the last episode. And during that training, the suggestion was made when a guy's talking, if he's just going and he's sharing with you deep, important things, just let him go and don't say anything.
Yeah, and this
you can just stay silent throughout the appointment, right?
Yeah.
And this is a medic appointment
in the context of a conference where somebody is actually signing up,
right,
for to have somebody across from them
one-on-one time
and to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
So
the training,
about the context.
The training is when we go through the medic training. We kind of do a practice run where 2 guys will get up and demonstrate in front of the class, like this is what this looks like. Well, Sean hears us talk about just being quiet the whole time and just not saying. You don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
He's like, that is not going to work.
He's a litigator.
Yeah.
It's point and counterpoint.
So he's up in front. He's sitting across from our teammate, Josh.
Yeah.
In this instance. And Sean's like, all right, I am going to test this theory.
Doesn't tell
right
anybody.
now. I know, internally. He's like, I'm testing this theory. So what happens? Sean's just kind of nodding, giving eye contact, right? Turning his body towards Josh. It turned into an actual medic appointment. Like Josh felt so well listened to and so engaged with that things started to come up and out of him.
Yeah.
And he's sure, and moments later, Josh is going to tears talking about saying,
right.
So this idea of you don't have to meet someone with this active listening, hooey. You can just engage with them with your body language, with your eyes, and listen to them and not have to say a word.
Yeah, the goal isn't to relate to them by something in your story necessarily. The goal is to relate to them
where they are.
Period.
Yeah.
Just to relate to them, period.
Right.
And it is bizarre that he's gotten a trophy for that and been, acknowledged as the great medic, when now that I'm really realizing all of it was kind of like, I'm going to prove these guys wrong. I'm going to show them, what this is and isn't.
That's bunk.
This doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So,
hey, he has become
I
one
want
of
to put
our...
an asterisk by that initial,
I know it. Yeah.
the greatest medics of all time.
Well, I'll tell you, he's become that because
that showed him.
That cracked him open.
Oh, it did.
To the possibility.
It did. So, SJ, in this idea of listening well, we hit him a little bit, but I want to hit him again. I made a little list of why this even matters.
Mm-hmm.
Why does listening matter? And we just said something earlier in the first session about when you're not listened to, when you're discarded, when you're diminished or dismissed by not being given the proper attention, because that's what listening will do. Mm-hmm. That we'd say that's very wounding.
Yeah.
It's very wounding. So it just makes sense.
It reinforces a wound.
Or reinforces that,
mm-hmm.
yes. Mm-hmm. So it just makes sense. The other side of the coin is what you were talking about with Sean. Why this matters is because listening can be one of the more healing things we do in community.
100%.
Tell me about that. Really? They said, what?
Yeah.
How? I can tell that's hurting you.
Mm-hmm. What was that emotion about?
Yeah.
I saw you go to tears.
Do you want to talk about it some more?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, things with question marks, start to really win those moments and those times. And it becomes this invitation out from the shell, from the shadows, and into, okay, well, maybe this person cares.
Yeah, really does.
and this really big statement, maybe I can trust them.
Mm-hmm.
So, the wounding comes in significant ways when we are not seen, not heard, not paid attention to, not attuned, not validated in our emotions and our expressions. And so therefore it can be extremely helpful, healing even, to have your heart cared for that way.
100%. To your point, man, I just was thinking about this as you were sharing. It brought it up in me. There was a time where if I wasn't listened to well, then I would just go back to like we talked about last episode, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Here's another one in the long line of people that don't give a crap about me and how I feel,
Yeah.
Now, understanding more about this and how it works, and honestly how God has designed this to work, I don't go to that place. If somebody's not listening well to me, I'm just kind of like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Versus accepting. So in to your point, there's healing that happens when you're listened to well, and when you do some of these push-ups and sit-ups and get trained to listen well, so that can break you free from agreements you made about yourself and your self-worth based on how someone does or doesn't listen to you.
Yeah. I think that's so good. And I think the only thing I could add to it would be this idea of being understood. I mean, nobody wants to be misunderstood.
No.
That's very frustrating. So being dismissed is one thing, but there's this other kind of low grade pain that when you're misunderstood, misinterpreted, somebody's actually applying their grid of what you're saying and concluding inaccurately what you're saying or even how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then they in turn offer some kind of advice of how you should think and how you should feel. It's real. We do this as parents a lot, and it's not good, not good at all. And but we're just practicing this stuff that we have been, unfortunately, too well trained at.
Right.
And so I think about if as a listener, the goal is to understand how somebody is feeling and thinking about something. Mm-hmm. That if you can get 70% there or better, You've just left the herd of people in most conversations. I've watched it. It's painful to watch when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's holy to watch when it's done, well. And yeah, that being settled and the ability when it's you and I with somebody that we're trying to visit with, talk to, and who's come in for some an intensive time, even to yield and let you continue in a moment rather than I got an idea, all right, it's one thing when it's one-on-one, that's different. You start to bring 2 or 3 people to the table, that starts to become a real art and a real practice of because you're listening, and I want to get into this too in a minute. There's a lot going on. I'm listening to you. I'm having my own thoughts. There's an enemy that's always kind of on the peripheral, if not in the middle of some of this.
Right.
False self, true self. So there's a lot going on, and can you discern? It's another word, understanding, right, and discernment, and those are really available to the listener who can ask more questions, especially before they offer anything. Mm-hmm. Do you really understand, what this is about and what's going on? I want to bring up another clip. We talked about Regan last time.
Yeah.
I thought of another one, the Patch Adams story, the Patch Adams film.
It's one of my favorites.
It's one of the best listening, non-listening.
Uh-huh.
It has a scene early where, if you know the film, Patch Adams, he's suicidal, so he checks himself in to a psychiatric program that is led by a psychiatrist who it shows them all in the circle and they're talking. And this guy is, he's just kind of, messing with his pen, and he's that's about all the time we have. Cuts off people who are sharing. So he's just not engaged very well at all. He's not engaged. And then early on, Patch, after that, he connects with his roommate over a situation that
squirrels who are attacking.
Yeah, we don't have time to go into it, but he's listening to him. He's actually in this altercation. He's frustrated, but something actually happens in the middle of the two of them, and they connect. That's what Patch says. So he goes into the psychiatrist's office, the director, the next morning, and said, "Hey, I'm checking out.
I know what I want to do.
I know what I want to do."
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist says, "Well, Hunter, I don't think you should check out." And he says, "No, last night I connected with somebody. I mean, I really, and I helped them with their problem. We solved their problem, and I want to connect with people."
And the whole time, the psychiatrist, his head is down. He's working on paperwork. Yeah. He's sipping his coffee.
Oh, there's another exchange between the two of them that's absolutely where Patch, you're talking about a scene where Patch says, he's so aware that he's not listening. He says, "Yeah, and then I a dragon came down and swooped me up and took me off, and then I farted in my coffee." And he's just saying these ridiculous things. And this guy's going, yeah. So the later scene is after they've established that this guy doesn't listen, and everybody in there is so hurting that they need just the opposite.
Yeah. Patch is like, I want to help people.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that psychiatrist goes, "Well, that's what I do." He says, "Listen to them and help them with their problems." And he says, "Well, that's what I do." And Patch says, Robin Williams, "Yeah, but you suck at it."
Yeah. It's the greatest.
It's the best. Yeah. And so I when I think about a model or a model of listening, and I know this sounds hyper spiritual, but I can't not bring up Jesus in this matter when it comes to listening, and how many question marks. I did this one time, looking at the questions that Jesus asks. And I know there's the Sermon on the Mount, and I know there's places that he's teaching, but
with the one-on-ones,
it's like
talking about?
7 or 8 out of 10 times that he interacts with people, it starts with questions, or he answers a question with a question as he's drawing, people out. Yet you just see this skill to relate and connect
and pursue.
Yeah. And some of it's disruptive for sure.
Oh yeah. What are you doing here at the well this time of day?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Where's your husband?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's after something, and he's after their hearts, and he's wanting to connect. I think about, how I was trained in evangelism, SJ, and engaging with people, even if it was door to door, because we did some door to door.
Oh yeah.
And when I was with another organization, in evangelism, we were again taught active listening, and yet I look back and I go, oh my gosh, those encounters were so agendaed on my part that it really didn't matter what they said. My job was to drive them as quickly as I could to the cross.
Yeah. You're
so
hurting them to the point you want to make.
No scenic route. Yeah. No. And if they were sharing, some of their hurt and pain, I was taught to bring a remedy to that.
Yeah.
So, and again, to get them biblically from their sin and their stuff, to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so there was answers. You were trained even in having answers to all these, to any question. And I'm not talking about that.
Let's not do that.
In terms of of method and methodology how to care, for somebody who is, especially when you're talking about spiritual matters,
right?
And what we see, Jesus doing. I think The Chosen, we bring it up all the time, is an incredible depiction of what that might look like, what the character, what the
100%.
person, what the man, what the Messiah looked like, and how he related to people in conversation and in questions.
So if we can, I want to take a little off ramp, and then we'll get back on the highway that you're talking about. So I think, I've heard it many, many, many times. Guys in particular will tell me, well, we just want to fix things. That's what guys want to do. We want to fix things. And so as you're talking about the evangelism thing, just having the answers, you're not really interested in the problem. You're more interested in just delivering a solution.
Yeah.
Right. And I think at the root of that is discomfort. One of the harder things about listening well is being able to sit in the discomfort of what someone might be sharing with you.
Yeah, it's a great point.
It is uncomfortable to hear someone talk about how they were sexually abused as a child. It is uncomfortable to hear someone talk about their struggle with pornography.
Yeah.
Or how they were abused when they were, hit when they were a kid. Those are uncomfortable things. And I think the important thing to remember when you're engaged with someone and listening to someone talk about things that are hard and uncomfortable to hear, rather than trying to push off and stay away from the uncomfortable feeling that you might get,
mm-hmm.
I would encourage, as hard as it is, you got to wade into that.
Yeah.
And in the interrogative, like you're talking about, Jesus asking questions all the time. Why is this so? And I'm not saying ask the other person. I'm saying make a mental note or even write something down. Why is that so hard for me to talk about? Because again, this is the economy of the gospel. You're actually engaging with someone to try to empathize with them, connect with them. Connection is such an important thing in our existence.
Yeah.
You're trying to engage with them and go after their heart. Every single time I've engaged with that and trying to go after someone else's heart, Jesus wants to talk to me about something.
Mm-hmm.
Wants to talk about something.
Yeah. There's another sidebar conversation that's going to become a central conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that I'm going to bring that up. Yeah. Hey, Jesus is really talking to me about this in the moment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the way that he works, his economy is, I just had this conversation with a guy a couple of nights ago at my Monday night group of men where he was sharing about something really hard that he was going through with his son, a difficult conversation he had to have with him. And where I went with that was, God wants to talk to you about something in that interaction with your son. And he's like, SJ, I hate talking to you about that because you always bring it back to God. I'm like, well, do you really hate that?
Yeah.
But what was interesting in that too, in the background, I'm feeling and experiencing something like I've got something I need to talk to my own son about that I don't really necessarily want to.
Yeah. Interesting.
Bring up.
You bring up, it's so good because, you are listening to this person, but you're also now aware that this is something for you. You've listened to it at such a level, such a depth that you can actually feel what it's inviting you to do in terms of some relational aspect with your son. And I think what we're after and what I wonder, same thing. I wonder how many of these holy moments would have been afforded me had I been a better listener. Because I am enjoying how many holy moments I get to experience as I continue to grow as a listener, and in my ability to relate and my ability to engage in another image bearer, another human being, and where they are and what they're going through. And I just remember as I started paying more and more attention to this, it is amazing the number of times you'll hear a phrase, I'm not saying that it's not important to have this response, but if you haven't gone a few more miles with that person, you haven't earned the right to offer this response. Well, you know what you might want to do? If that is your first reaction response, it's you've missed the opportunity to get in whatever it is that they're in. The cave, the crater, the swampy water, whatever that is, and I love that illustration of instead of shouting or sharing, because it can feel like a shout even if you're not raising your voice. We saw the Brene Brown stuff, that animated short.
Yeah, sympathy versus empathy.
Yeah, and I want to get into that in the next episode.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't want to jump ahead, but I can't not mention there are ways that we have learned to try to cheer somebody up, or put another layer of punch on it.
Yeah, she calls it in that clip. She calls it putting a silver lining on things. Silver lining it. We try to silver lining it.
Or
which isn't really a verb.
Or I've heard, and I get it as parents, we do it. Well, that's what happens when you do that. Or that's the way that, you got what you deserved.
That's the way of the world.
Statements like that are just ignoring, where somebody is. And it's not, it brings up this one thing I want to start to land on. Some of this response is definitely not what you say, but how you say it. And I would add when you say it.
Oh, yeah.
How you say it and when you say it. And so to be mindful of the appropriate, that's that discernment. Listening is a discerning quality, to be able to discern when is a good moment to say, hey, yeah. And it can vary. Like, man, sometimes it might be a time to call somebody out even in front of other people. Other times it may need to be in private. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're, charged with emotion and because you've been hurt or bruised, that's probably not the best time. And yet, man, it's better than not doing it at all, as you said, to be able to respond to somebody.
Yeah.
And what, how they're making you feel, or what that is bringing to you in the moment of, who was I with that was just, they were relating a story in the current, but it went right back to that. That's how one of my parents, I think it was their dad, made them feel. It was always, and you were talking about, it was always so much more about the tasks and so much more about what needs to get done that it doesn't matter how, someone feels. And I get it. They were trained in that and came up in that some way, somehow. But if you're not experiencing, here's one of the conclusions I want to make. If you're not experiencing very many holy or sacred moments with somebody, I would probably want to look at your listening ability.
Yeah.
Your listening skills.
Yeah.
The way in which you make people feel when they're with you.
Yeah. This whole time going back to when you first brought up, you got to walk with someone a little while to earn the right to say some of these things. And to your point with that, last thing that you shared, the law was, when during Jesus's earthly ministry, the law was that, a Roman soldier could just pull anybody aside, Jews in particular, and say, you're going to carry my crap for me for a mile, You're going to carry my gear, you're going to carry my sword, you're going to carry my shield, my helmet, all my stuff for a mile. And they have to walk that mile with the Roman soldier. Well, what Jesus does is really interesting is they're walking along and a mile goes by and the Roman soldier says, oh, okay, I'll take that back. And no, we're going to go the extra mile. We're going to go.
Mile,
he's
right.
like, I've got 2 more miles to go or whatever it is. And no, we'll carry it the whole way. You don't have to do that. The law says blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know I don't. So when we're talking about listening, what we're doing with someone is trying to help them carry some of what
their load,
offload some of their load, carry it for them until we can figure out how to put it down, hopefully permanently, or reinterpret it so it's not quite so heavy. And you've got to walk with someone a pretty good distance before you've earned the right and the trust to do that.
And legitimately, you're carrying some of your own stuff, figuratively, spiritually, and
it's not easy
in that regard. And
it's
so
not easy because sometimes you're like, oh man, you pick something up for somebody else, and you realize, wait a minute, I'm carrying that too. So, but being able to put aside, just going back to the holy moments, being able to put aside, make a note of it, go back to Jesus about it later. Hey, that really spurred, I empathize with that really deeply, and I've never seen that before. What's this about Jesus? Or to another trusted friend, I've had that happen several times where I'll be interacting with someone and it provokes something in me, and then I'll come to you and say, bro, I was talking to this guy the other day, and I don't know what it was all about, but I started to cry before he started crying, It's something like that happens. So
that's and those moments, right? If you're sensitive, there's a sensitivity to all this that is a great quality.
An awareness and alertness.
Yes. Yeah. You are dialed in, if you will. The process that we were talking about, the extra mile, I love that example. That reminds me of another story that many of us can see and relate to in the Good Will Hunting story. Robin Williams again, Patch Adams. Now he's Sean the counselor. Well, that movie comes to, at least in the counseling relationship, a very, very thick moment. But Sean earned that moment. All of that, and Will doesn't even want to be there. So he's,
Will doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah. And yet here's a trained professional, and it's not like, Sean that character doesn't engage. He actually has some pretty firm words for Will. at an engaging level, on the park bench. And but when they get to the end, the holy moment, that the trust that Sean earned from Will over time, and steady progress, steady direction, moving slowly, and led Will to just cave.
It was the breakthrough.
And Antoine Fisher is another story.
Oh yeah,
like that. So we love these stories, and when we watch them, we are in an emotional engagement, maybe even crying ourselves and stuff, because our hearts can see it.
Mm-hmm.
We can react to that and respond in a way we see the holy.
Mm-hmm.
My point is, do you get to experience, much of that?
Mm.
And the power of listening, I think, bringing it back and landing it to this thing that we talk about with the Trinity. We've said this before in another podcast, but I do think that it's worth mentioning again that the inventory of your heart in regards to God speaking, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, do they have things to say? And if it's been your experience back in your story that no, they don't, not to someone like me. We had that privilege of being at a big recovery space in Baltimore with, a couple hundred guys living in recovery. And it's a year-long program. And shout outs to Mike Rollo and Rusty Ekman and these guys who, lined us up
Bobby Cox
to go do that. And man, I'll never forget that early before Saturday's event when we were going to get to share. And on Friday night, one of the guys said, man, just thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being here with people like us.
Mm.
Just that tinge of diminishment, just that tinge of, you're you and we're us. I mean, and when I heard it, right, we listened to it, it's like hand on the shoulder, like, hey, bud, the distance between you and me is, I don't know. It's so minimal.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and hey, we're as honored to be here with men fighting for their lives more than you might even think.
Some of the most bravest men we've ever met.
Yeah. And I think
most courageous.
SJ, that I brought that up because even that subtle diminishment can play into what ultimately I think we're made for, is to be in relationship and in an intimate and conversational relationship with the Trinity.
Yeah.
And so if you're not experiencing that, well, Andy can cue up some podcast titles that can send you in a lot of different directions about hearing God and hearing his voice. That was just that was the beginning of the year that we did that series. And so I want to say that being listened to, by God, that was a concept that I had to, even in my 30s, begin to address in a way that I've had and do have multiple and many encounters of hearing God's voice, the Holy Spirit leading, guiding, directing, journaling, so the practice is my point, to practice that.
I'm smirking because I just know the story of the first time that you experienced that. It started with a question.
Yeah.
And I remember I love the way you tell that story too. You've told it many times. I just see you on a rock in Colorado and you look like you're about 9 years old in my mind.
Yeah.
Why
that's
don't
fair.
you speak to me?
Yeah.
Daddy, Papa, Father, why don't you speak to me?
Yeah.
Well, Michael, you don't believe that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, bro.
And so, as
courage,
as a, not the listener, but as the one needing to be listened to, to resurrect that part of our hearts that has been so bruised and wounded and dismissed in different ways. It's so central to wounding, not being listened to, not being heard.
And it
not being cared for.
influences our other relationships and our relationship to the
Amen.
Father.
So
Because now
it's all
knowing
big.
more of your story and the work you've been doing, even over these last couple of years,
Yeah.
in relationship to your parents and your mom passed away and just all of that. And you see all of that in the context of going all the way back to 2002 or 3, whenever it was, when little Mikey's on the, why don't you listen to me?
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you speak to me?
Yeah.
All the connection to all
of
your story.
I thought that if
man.
he did, if God spoke, it was not going to be good.
Yeah.
Because that's the God I was introduced to and trained up in.
And perpetuated in your relationship with adults.
With church mostly, and that space. And so I think the last thing to say is, look, it's not that you don't listen. That's not what we're talking about. It's how you listen.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're ending, it's what are you listening to?
What are you listening for?
What are the records? What are the files? What are the voices that you have listened to? And if you've never examined them, if you've never, frankly, evaluated them and come to the conclusion, that's a bunch of shit. That's crap. That is not true.
Yeah.
If you've never come to that place, that will be a great place to go to start to pay attention and listen. It's all listening, people. It's listening on multiple fronts. And if you don't listen well, why? It's a great. What is that about?
I would ask this question, and what I think is fun about this is that it can be interpreted in two different ways. What are you listening for?
Yeah.
What is the motivation behind your listening?
Mm-hmm.
What is the purpose of your listening? What are you listening for? And then what are you listening for? What are you trying to glean? What are you trying to pick up as you're paying attention to someone and their sharing?
Yeah. Reading the Bible is great. Listen to it, read it out loud. Yeah. Great. Listen to worship.
Yeah.
Listen to worship. Listen to the music. Listen to the words. Listen to all that.
God
can speak in those things.
Yeah.
Listen to the messages. Listen to podcasts. Listening. We do it all the time. But we're talking about there's another level. There's another place in which we can go as those who need to be listened to, and to the one who wants to speak and wants to take us into places that I don't think they have to be exceptional or abnormal or on the occasion. I think it's a place that as you move in this, I think you can go there, live there most of the time.
Make the extraordinary your ordinary.
Never made sense to me how the critical voice, the dismissive voice, the accusatory voice, the judgmental voice, never made sense to me why those voices were the loudest in my inner being, when I was spending time in silence, it was never silent.
Right.
And we'd love to talk some more about solitude and silence. So anyway, we'll keep going, unpacking, and see what else we can drum up and try to offer.
This is one of those ones, man, where I knew we had a lot to talk about, but even as we're talking about it, I'm discovering we had so much more to talk about than I thought we had to talk about.
Well, and I think this is a good episode for Andy to put a link to the listening guides because we're trying to bring some of the highlights from that and trying to bring forward our experience with that and what does that look like in my life with my wife, with my kids, with my friends.
Yeah.
I'd say that even as accomplished as you have become as a listener, and I think as hopefully skilled as I am becoming as a listener, what I want to say is even that doesn't minimize or diminish the need that I have to be listened to.
Oh.
And so it's not.
It makes it a finer
one
point.
Doesn't make it.
Brings a finer point to it.
One doesn't make the other more accessible or available. What happens is the more that you get to practice this, man, the more frustrating or difficult it can be when you're not given opportunity to be cared for and listened to, or ask questions, or met in the deeper waters of your life. So there's a selfishness to this whole podcast. Man, if we could just get some more good listeners out there, not that we've arrived, but if we could get some more great listeners out there,
more guys that know how to play. Yeah.
It's a balm. It's a sip of cold water. It's a nice gentle rub on the bruises of our hearts and souls. It's the best. And
it's what Jesus does, man. You go out trying to pursue other people in his name, and he's going to pursue you.
Amen. 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 So thanks for being with us on the Exploring More podcast about how to listen well, and the desire that we have to be listened to. We will keep exploring on the next episodes. We'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.